Alright, kitchen table wargaming fans and folks who are just learning the game. You, if you are joining this prestigious club, have now acquired for yourself a codex. I'm going to show you the Grey Knights Codex. I also have my Drukhari Codex, two very different armies, and I'm just trying to highlight parts of the codexes that you need to know to start playing. The first half of your codex, you should know, is full of incredible lore, chapter organization, the different shields or the Brotherhoods and the way that they are painted, stories from each of the different Brotherhoods. Just a really fun, incredible fun stuff to read. Alright, so you look through all those things and you get inspired and you find out information about different units. Then you get to, it's roughly the middle of the book. It's the same with the Drukhari. And you have Combat Patrol. You have Detachment Abilities, Brotherhood of Psychers. In another video, I've covered detachments, how they work, what they do. They unlock certain bonuses for you. Or not bonuses exactly, but there's different ways to build your army. But again, I'm going to focus on building 500-point armies. We'll do a Grey Knights and a Drukhari army, and we'll walk through the specifics of that. And in a Combat Patrol, you're going to have a minimum of 1 HQ choice and a minimum of 1 troop choice. And then each of those units costs points to build, and you have a 500-point limit to quote-unquote spend. The reason the detachments are important is you have specific abilities that are unlocked as long as you have a detachment that fits all the rules. In the Grey Knights, that means that all of the units included are Grey Knights. There are a few exceptions. We're not going to deal with those in this video. We're trying to make this the easy get started. So then you gain command ability from being all of the same detachment. You gain the Aegis ability, which is listed here. These things would change depending on your armies. They'll have different special rules for different armies if you're pure in your construction of your army. Then you also would have the objective secure ability given to all of your troops choices. And that is actually fairly important. We'll talk about that when we get into gameplay. But you don't want to lose the objective secure ability for your troops. That's kind of a big deal. Brotherhood Command, it lists a couple of things here regarding restrictions on the characters or the commanders that you can use. You can only ever bring a maximum of 1 Grandmaster and or 1 Brother Captain model for the Grey Knights. It's the same or similar restrictions. You can only have 1 Captain for a Space Marine army. And I think 1 Grandmaster, I think they're called Chapter Master for the regular Space Marine guys. I've never owned a codex, I don't know the right terms for them. That is per detachment, right? So if you're building more than a Combat Patrol army, you could bring 2 different detachments, and each detachment could have a Grandmaster and a Brother Captain. So just something to keep in mind with that when we get into later, after you've done the 500 points and you're ready to move on. There's also a couple of things pointed out here. You have psychic powers that are unlocked and warlord traits that are unlocked if everyone in that detachment is from the same Brotherhood. For the Drukhari, I will show you that real quick. The Drukhari have a similar thing. They have some slightly different terminology for it. You have a patrol, or instead of Brotherhoods, you have Cabal, you have Witch Cult, and you have Homunculus Coven. But each of these, if you are pure to a Cabal or pure to a Witch Cult or pure to a Coven, will grant special bonuses. And then there's sub-cults and sub-cabals within that you can choose from that also have varying special abilities. But the point that I'm trying to show you is that each army has rules for your detachments, and if you follow the rules to build specific detachments, you'll get specific abilities unlocked to go with that. So on this page, and these 2 pages in the codexes are going to show you that, right? So that's where you would start with building. The Grey Knights book, you turn the page, and these are the different Brotherhoods. There's 8 of them to pick from. There's a special stratagem you unlock, a special psychic power unlocked, and a special warlord trait unlocked if you're using all of your units from the Blades of Victory Brotherhood. So you look through those at your own time, and you read through all of those things very carefully. Now, I mentioned a 500-point limit for building a Combat Patrol army. This is a page full of some extra special things you can buy for characters. Please read the fine print here. It does clarify that you can't give some things to named characters, you cannot give some things to multiple characters, etc., etc. You can never give the same thing to multiple characters, but some armies allow for ways to get like a relic and one of these things, and if you spend command points, and it can be a little confusing. For the most part, you get to pick one thing that you can spend the points for to upgrade a character, except for named characters. So you have to read that fine print, the blah 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 as we like to call it. Then the next page is describing what those abilities are. You will have a page of stratagems. This is going to be the same in any of the new codexes for 9th edition. You'll have, it might have different terms, but you'll have those stratagems. You'll have upgrades that you can purchase. There's 4 pages of these stratagems. Stratagems, we'll talk a little bit more depth about this before we get into the first game. But just to know that there's a section in your book, every codex has them. Every army size begins with a certain number of command points. So at combat patrol, you begin with 3 command points, and you can spend them on various things in the game. That's what these stratagems are. They give you a special one-time or once per turn ability, and the command points, you regenerate 1 for each turn or each battle round. And they can be used to really, really help you at certain points. You can also spend command points to purchase extra detachments. Well, that's something for a later date when we have bigger armies to look at. Every army also has relics. The relics can be incredibly powerful. Again, there is some important business to note up here. You cannot give these to named characters most of the time because those guys come with their own named character, named relic, sorry. And you do have to have a Grey Knight's Warlord in your army to unlock these, right? You can't have a Grey Knight patrol thrown into some random army and then unlock all of our cool Grey Knight's relics, because then it's not technically a Grey Knight's army. Just some fine print there to know about. There's usually going to be 2 pages of relics to pick from. Some armies have more, some have less. In the Grey Knights, the next page you'll see, these are psychic powers that they can use. Psychic powers are assigned to some characters as out of the Sanctic Discipline, or not characters, but units. Dominus Discipline, these go to your characters. They can pick and choose from these depending on how many abilities or psychic powers they can know and cast. If you have a chaplain in your army, so Space Marines will have chaplains, they'll have their own set of litanies of purity. They only apply to a chaplain. If you choose to use a chaplain, you'll read through the rules about how to use litanies. If you choose not to use a chaplain, then you don't have to worry about that page. And then you have your Warlord Traits. So these are the 6 Warlord Traits that all Grey Knights characters can choose from. However, remember that if you choose a specific Brotherhood, which you should do unless you're trying to not use all your bonuses or abilities that are granted to you, those Brotherhoods have an additional Warlord trait you can choose instead of one of these. And there's a stratagem also that you can spend a command point or 2 on and give 1 Warlord character 2 Warlord traits. That's new for Grey Knights in 9th edition, but it's powerful if you use the right combinations. So you want to look through those and be familiar with those. Special note, all named characters in any codex come with predetermined Warlord traits. Just because you use Drago in your army does not mean he has to be your warlord, even though he is the Lord of the Grey Knights. Same with any book. You could bring Drago, and he can be a second commander choice. So even in a patrol where you're allowed to have 2 HQ choices, you can bring 1 generic captain, say a brother captain, and the brother captain, could be your warlord, and you could choose the warlord trait that best fits him. And you could bring Drago as a second HQ choice or commander choice, and then he would not be given a warlord trait because he would not be your warlord for your army. That is basically all there is to know. Any of the new books also will come with 3 secondaries that are specific to their army only, and only if you're playing a full Grey Knights detachment army would you be able to select these in the secondary part of your game. That's it. From there, you're going to move on to random name generators, crusade rules, and then you'll finally get through a set of things about crusade, and it brings you back to your units for a regular 40k or a not crusade. And here we talk more again. You've got your Brotherhood keyword, once again, war gear and weapon lists, abilities. This kind of breaks down the last few things you need to know as you start working on building your army. Deployment abilities, these will be different for each army. And then for the Grey Knights in particular, you have Tides of the Warp. These are our super doctrines, I guess you could call it, or the equivalent to that of what a Space Marine player would have. And you choose one at the start of the game, and then you can use a psychic power to change these during the game in your psychic phase. That's all there is until you get to units. I'm going to cover units at a later time. And just so you see what it looks like in the Drukhari book, and I'll go through this a little faster. This would be similar to your Brotherhoods. These are specific things. You can get one for Cabal, one for Witch Cult, one for Homunculus. It unlocks a specific Warlord trait, a specific relic in this case, and an ability usually is listed up at the top. Same thing here and here. And then you have some upgrades you can spend to upgrade specific troop units within these. Then it shows you the cost of that. This would be cost per model. These are your Drukhari Covens and Cabals. It's just showing how each of these breaks down, where certain key named characters can fit in, cannot fit in with certain ones. And then there's a breakdown, like for the Grey Knights that were called Brotherhoods. These would be for your Cabals. Each of these is showing specific abilities, specific Warlord trait, specific relic, and a specific stratagem that you can use if you're choosing to run that. Very similar to the Grey Knights Brotherhoods, it's a different build. These are Witch Cults, these are Homunculus Covens, and my cheat sheets and things that I've printed out. Here's an example for your detachments. Again, I've got a whole thing covering detachments, but there's one given here because the Drukhari have the ability to do some kind of weird things with their detachment builds. They've kindly printed out what that can look like here for you. So you will not find this in any other book except for the Grey Knights. You got stratagems, stratagems, stratagems. Then there's the special secondaries you could choose. There's 3 that are options for you. Here's lists of your Warlord traits you can pick from, and a page full of their relics. There's not as many relics for the Drukhari, but they're mighty powerful. There's those. Then you've got your crusade rules. So I'm not trying to show all of those things just yet. So there's that going on. Then there's a few extra little bits of information about the data sheets right before you get to the units themselves. So similar to the Grey Knights, you have, as long as everyone's in a pure coven, patrol, etc., you unlock certain abilities here. These are outlined, different rules to follow, and then there's specific thing for witch cults. So all of the information you need to start building your army is going to be found in that codex, and it's kind of the middle-ish section. And then we'll come back and we'll take a look-see at units, how you choose units, what you should look for, etc. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Hope it's useful information. If there's something I can do to make this more useful, better, etc., let me know. Trying to keep these kind of short and sweet, giving you a little brief tour and how to break down what's in your codex.